now, though, joining me is my colleague Vladimir Putin, back up from the convention floor, as well as former NAACP President Ben Jealous. Ben was a Bernie Sanders supporter and delegate. During his speech in front of the convention on Monday, he endorsed Hillary Clinton. All right, Ben, thanks so much for being with us.
Sure.
So first of all, I want to start with just your entrance in. You were telling me that you were greeted by a lot of Bernie Sanders fans, delegates, supporters. How are they all doing now? Because we obviously saw that there was a lot of discontent here in the last couple
Look, I think the polls suggest maybe 10% of our supporters will not vote for Clinton. That means 90% either plan on it or thinking about it. And what you see here is that most folks are, like me, going to follow Bernie Sanders into supporting Hillary Clinton. It's not dissimilar from what we saw in 2008. And really what you see going on here is what a real convention looks like. We're used to sort of made-for-TV coronation ceremonies, photo ops. But you roll the tape and you look at FDR and like 36 or 40, whatever. People, these are supposed to be kind of cantankerous, kind of grumpy events where each day people get a little more united. And I think what you've seen is that, Monday was the toughest day. Tuesday's a little better. Wednesday, I expect folks be a bit closer to.
All right, Ben, I want to ask you about some news of the day. Donald Trump held a press conference earlier today in which he referred to an instance in which Russian President Vladimir Putin used the N-word when describing or talking about President Obama. Let's play a little bit of that.
I don't think he respects Clinton. I don't think Putin has any respect whatsoever for Clinton. I think he does respect me. And I hope I get along great with him. It's possible that we won't, Jeremy. I hope that we get along great with Putin because it would be great to have Russia with a good relationship. Right now, we don't have a good relationship. Putin has said things over the last year that are really bad things, okay? He mentioned the N-word one time. I was shocked to hear him mention the N-word. You know what the N-word is, right? He mentioned it. I was shocked. He has a total lack of respect for President Obama. Number one, he doesn't like him. And number two, he doesn't respect him. I think he's going to respect your president if I'm elected. And I hope he likes me.
All right, we asked our chief White House correspondent, Major Garrett. He has no knowledge of President Putin ever calling President Obama the N-word. We've asked other reporters that. We've been looking into it ourselves, at least not publicly, at least not to a political opponent. What's your...
Maybe it's when they were drinking together.
Yeah, although today he said he never met him. But, what's your reaction when you hear something like that kind of language being used on a political campaign?
Well, first of all, just even before he said that, he just looked kind of weak. I can't imagine an American president saying, I really hope Putin likes me. This is a guy who's pretty clear that his strategic interests are contrary to ours in a lot of very significant ways. And we've been trying to avoid a proxy war with him in Syria. It's just, he could have put it a different way. Putting it that way sounds a bit weak. Donald Trump, given his history in the Central Park Five, given the recent revelation that his father was once locked up for being part of the Ku Klux Klan, I think should probably just stay away from references to the N-word. It just brings up sort of bad associations, that some of which are distant, some of which are far too recent, like his saying that he couldn't support a judge because he was Latino. So, if I was Donald Trump, he seems like he's trying to sort of become more presidential, yet he's still trying to hold on to the spotlight. So that just struck me as him trying to week at the media, like, hey, it's a reason to talk about me while I'm here trying to look calm.
I just want to say that I think the reporting on that, Fred Trump being arrested, it's still murky why he was arrested at the time that rally in Queens was being held. I don't know if he was arrested for attending it or if there was something else, but just to be clear on that. But Nicholas Kristof of the New York Times did have a column where he talked about some of the practices that the Trumps used during the time that they owned a lot of buildings in New York.
I think the reason why being arrested at a Klan rally, most folks, think probably means he was involved with them is because there's been so many other allegations of racism by old man Trump and just being a bad guy towards his tenants. Woody Guthrie actually wrote a song about him. So that kind of puts you in a small group of New York City landlords when Woody Guthrie is writing songs about just what a mean guy you are.
He has said in the past on that issue, he disavows, but I want to ask you about something else.
Sure.
He's made a direct appeal to disgruntled Sanders supporters. He has said, Donald Trump has said, that Senator Sanders was treated badly and that the leaked emails, the Democratic National Committee emails that were leaked over the weekend are evidence that, in fact, the deck was always stacked against Senator Sanders, and therefore trying to find common cause as the anti-establishment candidate, saying, this is why you should come over to me now that Hillary Clinton is your nominee.
You know, look, I think politics for a lot of people is like, especially these days, people are upset with the parties and two candidates who have low approval ratings. It's a bit like going to Baskin-Robbins. You know, people want to consider everything. They're probably going to go back if they always order chocolate and just order chocolate, but they'll consider everything. And, that's healthy. I really... right now, there's 11% of our voters who say that they definitely won't vote for Hillary. Maybe 10% of that will vote for him. Now, to give him 1% of our voters, I really am not too concerned. I think for him, for Trump, the strategy right now is to try to stay in the news as much as possible. I mean, on the one hand, I really appreciate the concern that the media has about him. There's a lot to be concerned about. On the other hand, when you look at the dollar value of the free media he gets, of the so-called earned media he gets, as opposed to paid media, it's so much higher than anybody else. That I worry that sort of us nitpicking kind of every either crazy, stupid, offensive, dangerous thing he says only helps him.
Ben, I want to ask you about the state of race relations in our country. Hillary Clinton is about to be the first woman to accept the nomination of a major American political party for president of the United States. This comes on the heels, obviously, of our first African-American president. But there are a lot of people that are concerned that things have deteriorated. But when you see what's happening, at least with regards to this party, how would you categorize the state of race relations in this country over the last 8 years? Has it gotten better or worse?
I think a lot of things have come to the surface. I mean, the reality is that with race, you're always dealing with the conscious and the subconscious, the spoken and the unspoken, the how I behave in public and what I really want to do. Donald Trump stokes people's id in a way that's actually quite dangerous. I think I would be very surprised when the stats come out from the Southern Poverty Law Center if we do not see that there was a spike in hate crimes attacks during this period, because that's what happens when you have either president or even a top presidential candidate out there stoking people who fear and hate people because of their race or because of their religion. We're already hearing about basketball teams chanting, build the wall, because they're playing a predominantly Latino team. That sort of antagonism can go bad places really quickly on the schoolyard, in the streets. I've investigated in my lifetime too many hate crimes to not speak out about a candidate who's stoking extreme white nationalism trying to get into office. It's a very dangerous thing.
So then, Ben, what are the things, if you could wave a magic wand and on day one have a Hillary Clinton presidency, what are the top 2-3 things you would like her to begin doing from the very moment she gets into the Oval Office if she wins?
Stop the TPP. Get consensus, because it already exists, between Republicans and Democrats to radically end mass incarceration quickly. And we've seen it happen in some southern states like Georgia. There's no reason we can't do it for the whole country. And make sure that the DOJ investigates, you can do this on day one, investigates every suspicious police killing or questionable killing of an unarmed civilian by the cops. Those 3 things would go a long way to her base and also the base of the party.
And helping improve race relations, you think?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the reality is, well, so there's a couple of things. Bad trade deals have done a lot, the deindustrialization of our country to empty out jobs in the inner city. Right now, we're fighting the TPP, trying to make sure that the Detroit auto part industry doesn't go the way of the American textile industry. And the reality is just putting more working class men out of work in Detroit will hurt everything. Race relations, public safety, everything.
Isn't that part of Donald Trump's argument?
Yeah, Donald Trump really, look.
Isn't there common cause?
Yeah,
they do.
There's a reason why today all the major candidates are against the TPP. With that said, I don't think Donald Trump really knows most of the policies he's saying he's for or against. He said he's against the WTO. I would love to just ask him 5 questions about the WTO to see how much he knows about it, but no one ever seems to do that. With regards to mass incarceration and police accountability, look, we have the mothers of the movement on the stage, black women pretty much made sure Hillary won. You know, that's sort of the decisive demographic for her in this primary. Folks will want to see that she's serious about following up quickly.
It's interesting. Elaine and I were talking yesterday with Steve Shigaris. We talked about the fact that even on the heels of the nation's first African-American president, 69% of Americans, according to a recent CBS News poll, think race relations are at their worst. And the question was, we were sort of debating amongst ourselves, is the president of the United States, no matter who it is, able to be the one to fix race relations if the first African-American president? But in your point about the TPP and saying how that has a trickle-down effect, do you think that
it's not trickle-down? It's a disastrous effect on entire industry.
In other words, I'm saying if they didn't support TPP, you say that would prevent some of the things that we've seen happening in African-American communities over the last couple of years.
Yeah, but also you have to remember that, like, you know, concern about, like, for instance, trade bills is very regional. And black folks in the inner city, in Detroit, in Chicago, are very concerned because these are still industrialized areas. You know, just kind of going back, you know, what President Obama has done. Because, yeah, there are race relations, but there are also children's aspirations. And there's no doubt that President Obama's presidency has had a real impact on the aspirations of black children, brown children, children of immigrants, children with funny names, whole categories.
I know what that's
children,
like.
Right? And I think that we should be talking about that more as we approach the end. Race relations themselves, yeah, you know, there is one story we have seen, which is, you know, a very impressive, productive black president. There's something else we've been subjected to, which is a bunch of other young, promising men killed in their prime by the very people who have sworn to serve and protect them. At the same time, we've seen, you know, murders increase in a number of cities, which also can make people afraid. All of that has an effect, too.
Do you think, Ben, are there any places in this country, we saw this with President Obama recently, trying to convene essentially a panel of people by his own description, people who don't agree on these issues about law enforcement and communities of color and the issues facing them and the tensions facing them. Are there places, are there opportunities in this country, you think, where dialogue, honest dialogue, can really happen so that progress can be made on
So if I can brag about my mama for a second. She wrote a book.
We're pro-mamas.
Yeah, exactly. She wrote a book 2 years ago called Combined Destinies, Whites Sharing Grief About Racism. These are 52 white people's stories about how racism against blacks in particular has hurt their lives. And my mom, who's a black psychotherapist, did it with a white psychotherapist. They've been traveling across the country doing conversations in churches. But, you know, I think a lot of the mainline Protestant churches, a lot of Reform Judaism, a lot of mainstream Islam has really stepped up in a quite beautiful way, not to mention the Baha'i and the Buddhists, in the midst of this kind of Black Lives Matter moment, to bring their congregations together with other congregations and have conversations. And what's so powerful about inter-congregational dialogue is that Sunday morning is like the most segregated place in our country. So if you get kind of one church and the other church, you got a lot of black folks, you got a lot of white folks, you have a real conversation if you buy my mom's book.
Ben, we have to wrap up soon, but I just want to ask sort of, I guess, a two-pronged question. One is, you know, the police officers in Baltimore all charges against them have been dropped. Yep. Several of them were African American. I think sometimes in this dialogue that we have about the police and African Americans and the public at large, it gets split into this, you know, black-white issue. Yeah. Many instances of police brutality have been also affected by African American cops, but there's committed, but there's people who don't want the entire police community to be what's the word? A broad brush of police brutality.
And sign me up for that.
What's the message to people so that they understand that whilst there are instances where there's clearly some malfeasance, that needs to be investigated, but for police officers who every day go on the job, put their lives at risk to protect people of all colors, all religions, all backgrounds, even if you happen to be an undocumented worker, a police officer is there to protect life and property.
You know, look, lots of us, there are lots of black blue families. My grandfather was in law enforcement for 30 years. We vacationed with a bunch of black law enforcement families every summer. Nina Turner, my colleague at the Bernie Sanders campaign, her son puts on a cop's uniform every day, and I think her husband used to. And the reality is I think everybody understands that it's a small number of cops. This is what the concern is. If a civilian kills a civilian, we know what's going to happen. It's going to be investigated. If somebody's found, they're going to be charged. If a police officer kills a civilian, we also unfortunately know what's going to happen. Not much. And what happened today in Baltimore confirmed that. I mean, you know, look, I think that DA or State's Attorney Mosby came out, gave a very impassioned speech, shows that her heart's with the people, a lot of people's hearts are with her. When the dust settles, people are going to say, look, we understand that you're progressive, we understand that you're committed. We want want to make sure your team is competent. Because we don't quite get this, and we want to feel safe. And when the dust settles, that'll be a fair question.
All right.
All right, Ben Jealous, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.